Thank you, Denise, and good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start this afternoon by noting that fundamentally agriculture is about food. And when I say that, I mean development investment in agriculture. As much as agriculture drives poverty reduction, there was almost no investment in agriculture by the development community for many years until the 2008 food price crisis and the spikes in food prices once again put agriculture front and center on the development agenda. Hunger is something we can all see as absolute, whereas poverty is a lot more relative. And I say that, I'm saying that in a sophisticated audience like this, we know how important poverty is. But I think when we look at what really drives investment in the sector, it's hunger, it's lack of food. And I think food is the common ground for the agriculture and the nutritional communities, and I think much more so nowadays, the health community as well. And it's interesting to note that in Feed the Future, our success will be measured by reductions in poverty and reductions in child stunting. So we have a common indicator that cuts across our communities. So thinking about what agriculture can do for nutrition, to start with, agriculture is a business, but what we're all about here this week is turning profitability and productivity gains into nutritional and health outcome gains. So some ideas on research first. I would say one thing is to boost grain legume productivity. There are many good reasons to grow grain legumes around incomes and sustainability, but frankly the fact that grain legumes have become so expensive relative to cereals has a real impact on iron deficiency anemia among the poor, especially women, Denise, and children. I think we need to pursue a research and a development agenda on diversification of cereal-based systems with grain legumes, vegetables, horticulture crops, oil seeds. These are all driven actually by income, but the nutritional outcomes and the health outcomes that we can derive from these I think can be extensive. And this is an area where we need the help of the nutrition and health communities, because you are the experts at social marketing, at behavioral change, and other factors that we as agriculturalists need. Diversification of those systems does not mean ignoring the cereal staples like wheat and rice. In fact, productivity gains in those staples have very high caloric elasticities for the undernourished, but they also are key signals of food security for poor people, and they potentiate diversification into these other higher income commodities. So we can't ignore the cereals and just focus on the other crops. It has to be the whole package. I think we need more research on evidence around the impact of vegetables on nutrition and health. It's quite robust, I think, in terms of gender and incomes. I don't think it's quite as clear with respect to nutritional outcomes. And even the homestead gardens that we've heard about this week, really the success often depends on the insertion of small livestock and poultry. Animal source foods, dairy, poultry, eggs, fish, and meat, critical to human nutrition and especially to child development. We didn't hear enough about them this week, in my opinion. They're critical for incomes too, and for women's access to incomes. And I think this is a place where I really want to caution that we be careful about projecting developing country attitudes onto poorer people in poor countries. The overconsumption of animal foods in countries where most people rarely get meat, eggs, fish, or dairy we shouldn't equate the two at all. They're very distinct, and of course one of the great outcomes we'd like to see would be children actually having access to these foods. In health, I think there's a clear research agenda around the enlightened use of agrochemicals. We already recommend no pesticides be used in rice production. So that's a big gain over 25 years ago. And that's based on the science of genetics and the science of ecology. Food safety, obviously a lot to be done around zoonoses, safe handling of perishable foods, and food contamination and aflatoxin. But it was hard to see the development agenda, and I frankly was a little bit concerned that in the sessions I was in, the food safety in terms of overseas exports was clear, but the food safety being attained in the local and regional markets seem to be missing. The markets still are not demanding it. Somehow that has to happen if we're serious about food safety. So a little bit on how, and I know I'm out of time, so I'll be quick. There was a clear message to break down the walls. How about some ways to do that? One, I really liked the idea of multi-sectoral training, agriculture, health, and nutrition. And that actually matches food security, which encompasses availability, access, utilization, and safety. I think USAID and other development agencies could foster this both internally but also through our external partnerships. Also, co-location of programs of nutrition, health, and agriculture programs would help, as would shared indicators. Devising a common language would help. I think we're closer in nutrition than we are with health between the two, with agriculture, but that we could work on that. And I think investing in impact assessment that includes the analysis of the pathways and relationships in generating nutrition and health outcomes and giving us really robust evidence would be a great step forward, and many people have cited this week. Finally, I'd just like to share a couple of concerns with you. As I said earlier, I'm concerned about placing our developed country lens on the problems of the poor in the developing world. I mentioned this about animal source foods. I also will mention it about equating undernutrition with chronic diseases. From a development investment standpoint, the problems of a poor choice of foods versus the problem of not enough food or no choice of foods for a good diet are not the same. They don't represent the same development imperative, and in my opinion, they're not morally equivalent. I think we also have to keep the focus on those who, without enough food and without access to higher quality foods for a better diet. And finally, with all due respect to the fact that wealthy people have a preference for organic foods in many situations, I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that these are nutritionally or either nutritionally better or more healthy. And I would be very concerned if we were to look at poor farmers in developing countries where we desperately need them to use mineral fertilizers and to start to project an organic food approach on that. And nobody's really advocating that, but it's just to not be distracted by the fact that what we like in North America or Western Europe isn't necessarily what poor people and poor women need in the developing world. Thank you.